Hello, everyone. This is Jeanette Shaliga with VGA, and I am here with the delightful Eleanor Brinsko. Hello, Eleanor.
Hello, how are you today?
I am good. It's been so fun pre-chatting before we started this little interview. Eleanor and I have a lot of similar interests because we're both, or have been. I am currently a music teacher, and Eleanor,
I
were
was.
you were a music teacher.
Yes.
And then, of course, we've got our love for genealogy, which is always super fun. And I know last time we talked, we mentioned a little bit about your genealogy business and your lecturing. But now, I want a little bit of the inside scoop because I know that you and your husband do your business together because I've seen your awesome picture on your website. So can you tell me about your husband and how you guys got started in genealogy together?
Sure. So when I graduated from graduate school in 2014, I was trying to figure out what I was going to do. I was dating my husband at the time. And so he and I were kind of bouncing ideas back and forth. And one of the things that brought us together was that I did his grandfather's genealogy. And so that was just kind of a main connection right away. We even had our wedding genealogy themed. Um,
What?
yeah.
Okay, no, pause right there. Okay, tell more about that, please.
So we were just trying to figure out what kind of theme we wanted for our wedding. And one of our main things was because genealogy brought us together, was that we wanted to incorporate our family history. And so we had like the different pieces of music had some connection to our family history. Like our recessional was my grandparents' wedding recessional. We had I had a Swedish updo because my maiden name is Peterson, and so I wanted to go Swede up here. And then our reception area, each table name was one of our surnames in our family tree. So we start off with our parents' names and we worked with grandparents and great grandparents. So it was really cool. We just had this really great
Love
tree
that.
theme for our wedding. So then we cut our honeymoon short because then I had my first presentation to give. And that's when we decided, you know what, we need to make a business out of this. So my husband does all the tech stuff. He makes everything run. And he will be my sounding board when I just need somebody to like, hey, I have no idea what to do. I'm just hitting these brick walls. Having that person to help you walk through things is key in helping to solve
Yeah.
any brick walls getting stumped. They help. So my husband does a lot of the behind the scenes. He'll do his own family's research, and then I'm the one who's out presenting and creating most of the content.
That is super awesome. I
Yeah.
love it. Do you guys have separate trees? Like if you have ancestry, like do you have one global one that you both work on?
So we each have our own tree. So I have my Peterson tree, which is all on my side, and then we have the Brinsko tree, which is all of his side. But we have some crossover. So some of my ancestors are in his, some of his are in mine, just to see if any new different leaves pop up in one tree versus another. But just to kind of show that we're connected. But we started this before we had kids, and so now we have our kids in each one of the trees too. So. Mhm.
Very cool. I just wasn't sure, if how melded you guys were because I know sometimes you'd be like, no, don't mess up my tree, or so if it was like, let's work together.
Well, that too. And also the trees can become so massive. It's so hard to navigate and making sure that you have the correct information in there. So that's why I want to try to keep the trees separate too.
Yeah.
So
I love it. So again, before we hit record, you were talking about your grandma, and
yeah,
that I'm sorry that she passed away.
thanks.
Yeah, can you share a little bit about that?
Sure. So she was the last remaining grandparent between my husband Nick and I. She died of pancreatic cancer.
Mhm.
She had it for less than a year. And so thankfully I was able to get up to I'm originally from Minnesota. I'm a Swede from Minnesota. And so I was able to get back to Minnesota right before she passed away. I had some really nice time with her before
Love
she
it.
passed. And then we went up a week later for the funeral.
Mhm.
But the executrix said, well, according to the will, you get everything. You get the house, you get all of her contents that are in here. There was just a couple things that I didn't get that was given to other family.
Okay.
But because I got everything. I got everything, including
Okay.
all of her family history stuff. My grandma was such a big family oriented person, and she was in charge of holding the family reunions. She was in charge of the Christmas letters. And I would ask her, how are we related to that person? And she would just go, da, 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 da. She'd able to just rattle it off. And before she passed away just years ago, she said, well, when I go, you're in charge of throwing the family reunions. I'm like, how am I going to do that? But she left a lot of great information. She left her address books and her telephone books. I have boxes surrounding me that's behind the view here, of photographs, of albums, of her divorce papers from my grandfather. Those vital, amazing records that I can have now, those are mine. So my project for myself, but also for my business, is demonstrating how do I now integrate and process this information that I have now inherited into my collection to make sense of it, and to make sure that it's preserved well.
Mhm.
My first presentation I did for VGA, it was a 10-minute quick interview, a presentation about finding aids, creating a finding aid for your own stuff. This is
Yeah,
going
for
to
our
be
birthday party last
yes,
year.
for the
Yeah.
4th birthday party. So now I can give a live demonstration about how to do this, how to sort this out, so that future generations can understand who this person is, who is that person, who is this and who is that, and why do we keep this, and do we need to keep this information? Can I give it to somebody else? So
Mhm.
just using the finding aid tool, using my dad's guidance. My dad is an archivist for the Minnesota Historical Society, so I'm going to be using him as a ready reference to help
Yeah.
me organize the stuff. Plus, he knew her, so I get that there's that understanding, and then finally, the final integration of all the material.
Mhm. I know it comes from sad circumstances, and I had a grandpa that passed from pancreatic cancer too, and it's very aggressive.
It
And
is.
but to then have knowing that she loved all of this and that you were going to love all of it too, like, and that you're going to help preserve to keep that memory going, is just so wonderful for both, her memory and legacy and the rest of the family and for you. And so I'm just, I'm happy for you and excited about what's going to go forward.
Thank you. And I will say for the audience, for everybody, one of the best gifts that she gave me, I mean, besides what she left me, was that she actually filled out the Grandma Answer My Questions books. So she
Yes.
actually filled out every question in that book. And I learned things while I was reading it as she was passing away that I had no idea. And unfortunately, I couldn't ask her, hey, but she was able to write it out nicely. So please fill out those books, fill them
Yes.
out.
Love those. And they even have like ones that you could just email, like
Mhm.
email a question once a week, so if the person doesn't want to handwrite and everything. So
Yeah.
love it, love it. Now within some of the stuff that you've gathered, did you find anything that really piqued, perhaps something that is going to be in your upcoming VGA talk?
Why, yes, it will be. Yes, the photographs. I just love the photographs so much. Um, Unfortunately, there's a lot of the people like, oh, I don't know who this is. So I get to ask extended family, what happened here? What happened here? But there were some older photographs of my great grandfather, so her dad, that I didn't know existed. And now
Okay.
I have them. And my great grandfather is one of the main people I'm going to be talking about in my presentation in a couple of weeks.
Uh-huh.
So he's one of I don't know about you, but I have these ancestors that really got me into genealogy. And it was because we weren't allowed to talk about them. We weren't allowed to talk about them. They were the black sheep. They are taboo. We don't talk about them. I don't know who they are, but they really did. So my grandma actually disowned her dad
Okay.
because he ended up just not being present in her life. So this presentation I'm giving is about our black sheep ancestors and their prison time, their jail records. We're
Oh,
looking into court records. One of the things that I learned is that my grandma was actually closer to her biological dad than she let on. But
okay.
in this presentation, we're going to be starting off with my great grandfather, who my grandma always said, yep, He ran off for a loaf of bread and a jug of milk, and he never came back. Well, because he went to jail, and he kept going to jail and kept going to jail. So I look at his prison records and what I was able to pull from multiple states, not just Wisconsin, but from multiple states. And then I look at the psychology of why did he become this way? What happened? What were the circumstances? And it turns out, not to have too much of a spoiler, but we have to look at his dad and apple falling from the tree. But then we were talking about my husband, and he also has a jailbird ancestor who I think, Jeanette, you'd be really excited to hear about, because he was a musician jailbird.
Yes.
Yep. So he uses his musical career to get into a lot of trouble.
Oh my gosh.
So, and without giving too many spoilers, there you go.
You have got me hooked. I'm so excited to hear about our black sheep and their prison records. I know I've got one, not in my direct line, but I found quite a few articles about him getting arrested a lot during Prohibition because he had a restaurant and everything. And I believe it didn't just was local, I believe federal agents. And so I think there's federal court records that I haven't yet been able to access. So I am interested in learning what you have to share. So thank you so much, Eleanor. I love talking to you.
I love talking to you too.
Yes, I can't wait for your upcoming VGA program.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be back. So thank you for having me back.